Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of the Cheats Movement podcast. This is the Who's Got Next series as we talk to the top candidates running for the position of mayor in Richmond. Joining me right now is 2nd District Councilwoman Kim Gray. Councilwoman, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Hello, everyone.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you kind of a series of questions, mostly from the audience that have submitted questions for you. But some of them ask kind of the same question several different ways. So I'm going to try to put my own movement spin on it. And I'm going to give you kind of as much time as you need to articulate your answer. So it's not like a debate or form. And I'm not going to try to cut you off. I might ask
mute me
right.
Out.
I'm not going to mute you out, but I will probably ask a follow-up one or two. And the first one, we're just to jump right into it, because I believe, and this is what a lot of people are saying to me, but I actually believe this to be true. You've done a good job in this campaign, but over the last 4 years, drawing contrasts between you, current mayor, and the administration. You've stated what you often state what you believe he's done wrong or how he's gone about something wrong. But a lot of my audience has been asking, and I'll ask as well, how do you articulate your vision for the city, what you want to do as mayor, outside of what the current administration is doing? What's planned for, why are you running, and what's your plan for the future?
So I think that's a misnomer. People say that I haven't pushed forward with things. I have pushed forward. We accelerated the Pulse Corridor plan and got the zoning approved for Scott's Addition because we had so many special use permits coming through in that area, and it was appropriate, and we had the buy-in from the community and multiple community meetings. I think that the difference is that I don't believe I have all the answers. I think smart people know they don't have all the answers, and they go to where the answers are. And it's important to include everyone's voice, whether or not everybody gets what they want in any particular decisioning. They need to be heard, and they need to have a platform in which they can speak and relay their concerns or excitement about any particular issue. So especially when it comes to zoning changes or massive projects, big shiny objects, those deals need to be done with the utmost transparency and the utmost community input.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying. And I think it goes to the question. I think the real question that my audience wants to know is what's, if elected, you're running to be mayor, what's your vision? Where do you want to see the city go? What would your top priorities be?
Several visions. I mean, schools have always been my top priority. That's why I spent 18 months working on a master facilities plan that we took back to the community. I had 44 volunteers work on that plan for 18 months. We did community meetings throughout the city. We adopted an option which requires us to do some difficult decisioning. We've got to close and consolidate some school buildings, but I really think it's more important for us to have 21st century learning environments for every student. And the only way to accomplish that is to do some school consolidations and closures and put our resources where they are most efficiently spent. So a modernized school district is a big part of my vision. I think that's required for a city to be vibrant and to thrive. I think that we need to support, we're a foodie town. We have lost a lot of that momentum. We've got to really reinvest and support our local businesses. We've got to stop getting in their way. And for my own neighborhood, my own community in Jackson Ward, I think the most unifying project that I've got lots of irons going. I think we've got the cap over the highway, which would reconnect North Jackson Ward to the southern part of Jackson Ward. And we have a vision to monetize it by developing on top of the highway and putting affordable mixed income, mixed use developments, and putting business incubators so we can regain the status as the Black Wall Street and the Harlem of the South, and really reignite that energy and that that fabric of what Jackson Ward used to be. That's one piece of a plan, but there are so many. I mean, if I could, I mean, there's.
I like where you're going with that there. So in regards to at least, so I heard at least three things there. Obviously, modernization of schools. You said support the restaurant industry and get out of their way. And then you said, obviously, connecting Jackson Ward and possibly doing that. And that also could be a pitch for a plan of your economic development in the area as well.
For downtown, I think that is a project that we can get community buy-in, and we can actually affect so many families and so many business owners. We can incubate small and minority businesses and grow them into our economy. So there are visions and ways and large development projects that with public-private partnerships we can move forward and make them a reality.
So let me ask this, because oftentimes, and we saw it, we see schools modernization and funding for schools. That is a lot of people's priorities, right? And you just stated as well. The interesting thing is the next thing you said was supporting the restaurant industry, and we saw early throughout the current administration's term that they actually kind of pitted schools against. But they put a meals tax and said the meals tax is to support schools. You did vote against that plan because you didn't want to hamstring. You had said, you've articulated, and correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't want to hamstring the restaurant industry.
And that's exactly what's happening now. Now, I can't say that anyone could have predicted COVID-19, but any economic downturn with a heavily burdened tax on any industry, when we have surrounding counties that don't have those same taxes, it puts our inner city businesses at a competitive disadvantage with our county counterparts.
So move the ball forward for me. How do we modernize our schools, like you said, is your top priority, without kind of increasing revenue in ways in which we would find traditional, whether it's tax increases or economic development products? How do we get to that modernized school that you want to see in your vision without hurting the other areas?
So we have debt rolling off our books in 2024, which opens up and gives us a huge opportunity there. No one really knows where we will end up economically with COVID-19, but anyone, and I've knocked doors throughout the city, but especially Blackwell and then Manchester and the South Side, I'm hearing about huge tax increases. So we are growing our revenue with tax assessments. So there are increased revenues coming in from our real estate tax side. We have pretty much obliterated meals, lodging, and admissions. Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead. Continue. I'm sorry. I didn't want to.
Well, the meals, lodging, and admissions is still, a challenge. It's not going to come back until we're able to safely congregate and sit at bars again. I mean, that's a big breadwinner for restaurants is the alcohol sales and opening bars. And as it gets colder, we're going to see another dip because people may not want to be outdoors.
And that leads me to another audience question, because this particular audience member talks about, in particular, Broad Street and some areas that you live in Jackson Ward. Broad Street doesn't look the same today. There's a lot of boarded up businesses. If you're elected, what is your plan to get those businesses, back open, or again, and how do you weigh that with public safety concerns? One of the things that is always the challenge is how much do you kind of get back to normal in the midst of record numbers of, in several states, record numbers of new infections.
Oh, something just happened on my.
I'm on my end.
Can you see me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay.
Did you hear the question?
My screen went away. I think it was because of my phone rang, and somehow it went to my phone ringing on my screen. But anyway,
you're just fine.
I think first of all, we've got to restore trust in our communities, and we've got to do more work on the ground with relationships between our community and the police. We also have to recognize that our businesses, our small businesses downtown, employ a lot of families that need that work, and smashing windows and tearing apart buildings. We just had more windows smashed last weekend, and we've had gunfire last night downtown. We've got to get a handle on our public safety. So
okay, I'm sorry, but maybe because you cut out too, and I don't know if we heard the full question, but I was just wondering about in regards to this. I mean, I'll ask about law enforcement, but I really was your kind of ideas of how you get businesses back on its feet in the midst of a pandemic.
I think the pandemic is one thing. The boarded businesses are boarded because they're concerned that when they remove those boards, they'll get smashed again or vandalized. So that's kind of, that's what I'm
more hand in hand. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, they pretty much have been hit with the double whammy, not just pandemic. They didn't board because of pandemics. They boarded because of the civil unrest and the vandalism, graffiti, and smashed windows. I have small business owners who have slept weeks in their businesses because they've invested it all. They've staked it all on Richmond and on being an entrepreneur and a pioneer, and to have their businesses smashed to pieces and looted and, you know, major losses is a heavy blow. We lost a bike shop last night. You know, I had two of my daughters had sore throats, and I went to the Rite Aid, it's closed. I went to Kroger, they closed early. I went to, you know, I had to ride around and think about how many of my neighbors don't have a car or access, and it's late at night. We've lost our Starbucks, we've lost our Dollar Tree, we've lost a lot of our retail, and we've lost a lot of our small businesses that wanted to be in our downtown. So we've got to restore trust that when a 911 call is made for police or fire, that they're going to show up in a timely manner and protect those businesses from getting smashed all to pieces and from.
It's interesting, and let's dig a little bit deeper in that. It's not necessarily immediately on the schedule, but there is a few questions about what's happening now in Richmond and what's happened over the summer. And you've been very clear about your support for law enforcement and regaining trust, and you just articulated.
I don't support bad law enforcement. I just think that what are we without having some mechanism? I mean, if you looked out the window right now and someone was breaking in your car, you would pick up the phone likely and call 911. Would you not?
I probably would, yes. But let me ask this, because how do you, when you see the kind of the protest, not necessarily what we're talking about breaking windows and that stuff, but when you see the protest, it kind of harkens to kind of a really kind of boiling under the surface and rage of a lot of people in regards to whether you call it bad law enforcement or not. How do you, like, when you see people in the street protesting or you hear the news of another unarmed Black man or woman or child being shot, like, how does that hit home for you?
I have two Black sons, and obviously I have a son who'll be 31 soon, so he has not had the best experiences with Richmond police. I mean, not to cut you off, but you do, I don't know if it's empathize, but you sympathize, and probably as a mother sympathize with those people taking in the street. What's your message to them? I live it. Well? I was out in the streets. I was out in the protest. I support the movement. I think that the most heart-wrenching thing for me was George Floyd crying out for his mother who preceded him in death. I mean, to me, that was a call for all moms, regardless of color, to call to action for our young men and women who are being unjustly brutalized in our communities. And we need to say no to police brutality. Respect is a two-way street. So if we want the police to have respect, they have to show respect to the communities that they're here to protect and serve.
So as mayor, what would your plan be to bridge that gap? Would it look like a Marcus alert? Would it look like a review board? What would your plan be?
Well, I was working on those things pre-protest, I was working with the Richmond Transparency and Accountability Project on just those things. And
others, what are the others too? I mean, because those are kind of the ones in the news, but what are some of the things that you would like to see if you were mayor to close the gap?
Data collection, I think, is important, because if you don't have actual numbers to know what's happening on the ground, and putting yourself out there. I'm in the streets, I'm on the ground, I'm talking to people, I'm talking to moms, I'm talking to kids and our public housing communities that I believe in some respects are over policed, and in other respects they don't get enough attention. So you know, it's really important to have not just the police, but social workers and mental health providers who meet our community with compassion, with care and concern, and who actually have an investment and are known to our communities, those respective communities. And when it's done well, you know it, you see it, it's pretty tangible. So I'd like to,
as mayor, those would be some of your kind of ideas and goals that you would like to push forward.
I would return to our community policing model that was very successful with Rodney Monroe. And we had police who were on the ground, either riding bikes or walking their beats, who were known to the community. They showed respect. And it's less than being about what we see now. They'll say, oh, we're going to have a police walk, and they invite the press in, and you know, the elected officials and the chief and the lieutenants, and they walk around and walk into business and say, hey, how's it going?
So you just think that part is theater. That part is more theater.
Yeah, and maybe that's one piece. I just don't think it's that effective when it comes to building relationships and actually getting to know people. If I'm a business owner who's dealing with a drug dealer at my back door, that's not an opportunity to connect with law enforcement to say, hey, we've got some serious issues in this alleyway, you know, and I'm afraid someone's going to get shot. You know, that's not that opportunity. And I think that we need to have those walking beats. We need to have those relationships and build trust more. What I heard from moms in Gilpin Court, and I was overwhelmed, door to door, every mom, their kids can't go outside because they're afraid they're going to be shot in some kind of crossfire. There are apartments that have been taken over by drug dealers, and management is looking the other way. I saw cars driving into the quads where children were out running in front of these cars and playing. So it's challenging. People need, no matter where they live, they need the comfort and security of being able to come and go from their homes and even be inside. We had a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old inside their homes who were shot.
Well, I know, I understand what you're saying. Last thing on this topic, because I do want to switch gears and cover a couple of different things from our audience, but last thing on this topic, and I don't listen to conservative radio. I don't. I will tell you that now.
I don't either. I do.
However,
I do accept.
Apparently you've been on some.
Yeah, I'll talk to any news person.
But let me ask you this, and clear it up for me, and it also goes into a follow-up. Mm-hmm. Several people in my audience says that on a radio show that you aired Black Lives Matter protesters to the KKK.
That's okay. A blatant lie. And if you actually go back and listen to what I said, I made a huge distinction between peaceful protesters and the people who I saw, mostly white, young kids and very expensive cars with $200 backpacks loading Molotov cocktails, not Black Lives Matters. And I think that they use Black Lives Matter as a Trojan horse, for lack of a better analogy, to be able to do some of the harm to our communities. And in our Black communities, I saw Section 8 housing in my neighborhood in Jackson Ward being spray painted gentrifier, where nothing but low income Black people lived in this housing. I saw cars smashed from working people who can't afford to pay for a windshield when they're trying to get by. So I'm gonna speak up for my community. I'm gonna speak up for my neighborhood. There were 4 white guys on a bike who stopped me and my children in my car, told me I had to back my car up into traffic onto Belvedere in my neighborhood. And I said in the interview, and I'll say it again, where it took me was when my father, who was stalked by the Klan, beaten by the Klan and left for dead, it took me back there. The terror that I felt when these white guys rolled up on my car as a mom with children in the backseat was the same terror that I felt when the Klan stalked my dad, because you don't know what people are capable of. You don't know where their heads are. And I saw a lot of angry young white males who were willing to burn and beat and loot and do things in our community that I find unacceptable, especially as a single black mom. And I hope that Black men would speak up.
It's interesting because I think we're starting to see that all over, right? We're starting to see kind of, this kind of deception of people that are that are trying to. I don't even want to say that. What I want to say is, we've seen in places like Atlanta, we've seen an element of activism or protest that seems to be more destructive, that seems to be more young and white, as opposed to kind of the civil rights protest that we've seen. Let me ask you this, because I do want to get off this subject.
Well, let me just say one more point to that. It was a young white guy who lied and twisted my words and doxed me and put that out there. And he continues to do that online. And people need to actually go back to the original interview. If you want to know what I said, I stand by everything I said.
How do you, last thing on this part, how do you bridge the gap? So if you say, the election day comes and you're the next mayor of Richmond, a lot of grassroots organizations and activist organizations that don't necessarily see your candidacy right now and it's friendly. But when if you're mayor, you're going to be mayor of all of Richmond. How does that olive branch look like? How does that working together look like? Or is that even kind of on your mind right now?
It's always on my mind. I'm always open, and I give my phone number out at council meetings. I'm accessible. There are differences. Obviously, we're not always going to agree 100%. I think that people, once they learn me and know my heart is in the right place, they'll understand. I may have a different approach to situations. I may say things that are sometimes alarming, but that doesn't mean that we can't find consensus and common ground. So I'm going to always leave a door open. Never my home where my children sleep. That's off limits. But I'm always going to leave an open door, and I'm always going to be accessible to the people. I'm with the people.
Let's piggyback off that, because I did get another really good audience question that, to be frank, I didn't even know the answer to. Your candidacy has attracted Democrats, but it's also seemed to attract a large number of people that politically consider themselves Republicans. I have actually seen a Kim Gray GAD sign, the opponent that's running against Mark Warner, same yard. How do you describe your kind of leadership or political philosophy? And I'm not talking about party, but I'm talking about, do you consider yourself a moderate, conservative, progressive, all of the above? How do we kind of pin down your philosophy on these things?
So I'm a lifelong Democrat, have been since Jimmy Carter. I see myself in a lot of ways as socially liberal, fiscally conservative. I think that at the local level, there's no room for partisanship. There's no Republican way to fill a pothole. There's no Democratic way to fill a pothole. There's a right and a wrong way to do that, so it doesn't open up 10 times over again. There's a right way to procure things. I think competition leads to our best efficiencies, and I think that we need to respect and honor people across the city, no matter where their material condition or station in life. Everyone deserves a voice, and everyone deserves respect, whether they're voting or not. If they live in our city, if they are here, they deserve to have a voice, and they deserve to have respect. So that's where I come from. And I don't ask people their party affiliation.
Sure. No, Dan, let me ask, way too, because I've combed over your website. I have, and I noted that it does have a vision section. It doesn't have kind of like a legislative accomplishment section. So let me ask you this: what do you consider your biggest accomplishment or your biggest accomplishments in your legislative career? And that includes your 8 years on school board and your 4 years on council. So when you're talking record, what are the things you're most proud of?
I was the liaison to the federal courts when we completed and were released for bringing our schools into ADA compliance. So back on the school board, I pushed for better transparency in the school budgeting process. When I got there, we had a 30-page summary of what the budget was. I asked for a line budget, and I fought like everything mattered, because it did. When I came on the school board, we had to cut $26 million in 2009, and we needed to know where the budget was being spent. And without that information, it was very difficult. I think that consistently, legislatively, Arthur Ashe Boulevard is another big accomplishment, not just for me personally, but for our city. We have told the world and everyone who comes down 95 and 64 that we are inclusive, and we've reclaimed our forgotten son in Arthur Ashe by making him an exit off of our interstate. So I think that accomplishments, adding more. I worked with my other council members, Larson and Agilesto, when he was on council. We added 18 acres to our green spaces. I fought and got a bike pedestrian path and put into Scott's Addition, which is active now from the far end of Scott's Addition all the way to the Science Museum. And I think it's the everyday small accomplishments that people miss. You know, I had a woman.
Oh, go ahead. Let me ask you this though, because yes. I understand what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I just feel this way and it could be wrong. You're probably one of the most polarizing people on council, and when I say that, when I ask people about Kim Gray, it's either they know Kim Gray and they love Kim Gray, or they know Kim Gray and they don't say a nice thing. And I'm trying to understand in regards to the way, and I've been told by a really smart person just the other day that it's often the person that kind of speaks up that or kind of is categorized as the cog in the wheel type thing that often gets labeled that way, but it's a valuable, important role in regards to working with your colleagues and on city council, school board, or even just, why do you, correct me if I'm wrong, but why do you feel like it's almost either I love Kim Gray or I'm not messing with Kim Gray type thing?
Because I think a lot of it is because I'm very passionate in the work that I do. I've not just read about tragedies in people's homes and lives. I know how important the work is. And when, I was on just yesterday, and this is from being out on doors. I had a woman who is struggling with breast cancer who couldn't get an answer about her food stamps, and what has gone months without receiving her food stamps. We have compliance issues with that. Her comment to me when we finally got a call back to her last night, and I talked to her around 9 o'clock last night, was, well, people recognize that you can't cut off people's lights and water, but what about food? You know, she's struggling to just keep her health and her condition moving in a positive direction. And we're not providing what is required by law to her, which is a food stamp benefit. So I think that it's those things, and it may seem like a very minute thing, and that's just one person, but if you blanket that to how people are being treated, we just put $7.2 million into homelessness services, but I'm out, on the ground feeding people, making sure they have dry blankets and talking to them on the streets. And I'm not seeing that money get to those people. I'm not seeing the teams out.
And that's a good point, because in the sense of somebody would hear that, and I would hear that and say, well, you're on city council. What can you do? Like what if it's gone this way and you've been in elected office for 12 years, obviously school board's different than city council, but it's gone this way and you've often highlighted things that need to be changed. How are you utilizing your last 4 years in order to make those changes, or is it just something you can't do? It has to be an administrative. You have to be.
Well, that's why I'm running for mayor. That's exactly why.
No, I mean, I'm just trying
because when you're on the legislative side, you know, the mayor does a lot of flashy press conferences and press releases about all the great things that he's doing to make communities safer or to help the homeless. But if it's not actually translating to the results that we need, same thing with schools, 30 million more in investments into schools, but that money's not getting to the classrooms. It's not going to the teachers. We have a teacher retention issue. We have the highest dropout rates in the Commonwealth, and we're going backwards with more investments. So we've got to get towards results oriented.
No, I'm with you. This is a rapid fire one for you, because I do want to talk about, because you again often talk about schools. You were just talking about retention there.
Well, I'm also an RPS mom, so
right. I live
it.
Clear up this one for me. You cleared up the conservative radio thing, but clear up. In public debates, it has been said over and over again that the education compact is only as good as the people that show up. The mayor has highlighted you as someone that doesn't show up to those meetings. Is that actually true? And if you're not showing up, is there a reason why you don't show up to those?
Yeah, there's a reason why I don't show up.
So you don't show up. You haven't been to the education compact.
I came early on, and okay. I saw it as a bunch of fluff. And
you're freezing. I'm sorry. You are freezing now.
Am I freezing? Can you hear me?
I can't hear.
Can you hear me?
I can now. Cutting off, and I think we're back on.
That was weird.
It was perfect timing, right? It was as soon as we were.
Why haven't you shown up at those?
Yeah, and it's like, no, really quick, just if you can, and like you said, we'll be really mindful of time. I got two big things to finish up. But you have made a conscious decision not to go to those. You went early on. Tell us why you don't think they're effective. That's your phone.
Yeah, that is my phone. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
That's the woman calling about her food stamps case. So I made a conscious decision early on. I started going to those meetings, and as a council person, I put in 60 to 70 hours a week, and I am on the ground. I'm in the community, in the schools, working hard, and every minute of every day is precious, and I don't like wasting time. And I didn't see where the activities of that compact were getting to results. Obviously they aren't, because we're seeing a decline in student performance. We're seeing higher dropout rates. We've got some of the worst academic records in the Commonwealth. So I just don't. If you can't say something nice, I don't see where that compact was accomplishing anything. Sorry.
No, I understand. Hey, as somebody that understands constituent services,
and
I understand constituent services.
I don't even know how to turn it off my computer. I should figure that out.
No, this is a good answer. Now we've done we've only got like 2 more questions left, and we've done a lot of talk without actually bringing up monuments. I think you know where I stand on monuments.
Yeah.
And Confederate monuments. I've been pretty open about that, and I've got to say it's a issue that I found very difficult following your path to monuments, and where you ultimately voted for the removal of Confederate monuments in the city and on Monument Avenue. You ultimately got there. Let me ask this in this way. Do you believe that Confederate monuments should have been removed? Not the way they were removed, not who got paid. Do you believe they should be gone?
Yes. And that's why I voted to remove them. I
Why
voted.
was it so difficult for you to get there in that sense?
It wasn't, hey there.
There's my buddy. That's my buddy. On the video, you got to see Cam on his kindergarten break.
Number one, again, we have kids in squalor in their housing situations and in their schools. So I did not want to spend public dollars doing that. I would rather have seen these auctioned off and paid for privately to be removed. They are symbolic, yes, and they are hurtful and hatred, and they cause a lot of pain in our community. The 2 votes that were up on whether or not to remove monuments were not legal votes. I'm about process. I'm about legal process, and I'm about being inclusive in everything I do. We had a Monument Avenue Commission that called for the removal of Jeff Davis. It called for, which we did not have the legal authority to do at the time when that commission report came forward. It also called for the placement of a monument to the forgotten 14 U.S. colored troop soldiers who won Medals of Honor. I moved forward with what we could legally do, that recommendation, and it unanimously passed. So I'm always about process. I'm always about ruling with my head over my heart, and not with just getting caught up in the emotion, but intelligently moving through a process. They've been there that long. The way that they were removed with the $1.8 million contract that right now the mayor is under criminal investigation for is not the path I think that our tax dollars should have taken.
I understand, and I don't want to gloss over that, but I do want to say it's for people in the community. It seemed as if not just recently, but throughout the whole kind of process that you did not believe they should be taken down. That's wrong. You believe they should have been taken down from the very beginning.
I don't think I very often give my personal opinion on these issues. What I do is I go through, I don't agree with the 12-story building on Broad Street, but I supported it because we had a process that moved us forward to allow for that 12-story building. There are things that I 100% think are great ideas and support. What I support is democracy. What I support is process. He's so cute.
He's all over the place right now.
So big. So it's not about me and dictating my wishes and will on the people. It's about the will of the people. It's about the process. It's got to be transparent. It's got to be open, and it's got to be inclusive.
Is it a fair calculation that when is it a fair calculation that says basically, and I wrote this, so I wrote it in the profile. I don't know if you've seen it yet. I'm glad you agreed to do the interview one way or the other.
And let me just point out that if you go back to 2016, LeVar Stoney said it was ridiculous to even talk about removing Jeff Davis. I mean, he's quoted.
Okay. Well, let me ask this, because I know you're sensitive on time, and I want to be respectful of your time, and I think that we've gotten through some important pieces here, and I'm really appreciative of your time. And on a note that someone asked me, and I really am interested in this, in regards to your career in public service and the people that you have gotten your best advice from, and the people you've looked up to, whether it's in public service or outside of public service, who would you credit, as kind of the people professionally, personally that have gotten you to this point? Who do you credit who do you lift up? Who do you credit to, like, say, because of these individuals, I am who I am today?
This is like an Academy Award 30-second thing. I would leave somebody out. That's a hard question. But my dad, I think, is the most influential political figure. He had a lot of influence on me in my young life. I spent a lot of time with him. He was a great musician. He got to play with a lot of the greats, Duke Ellington, Dizzy Gillespie, and I think musicians kind of see the world differently. And I'm not a musician. I have no talent. Went to my kids, but I think that that inclusive kind of all sounds, all voices kind of makes for a better composition. And that's kind of the way I see the world.
Mm-hmm. Last thing, Councilwoman Gray, thank you again for all your time and visiting us on the podcast. You've actually, this is not your first time on the podcast. You know,
No,
you did the group.
Anytime you call me, Mark, I like you. And I think I like your comedy too. But I can say that even though people may say hateful stuff, I'm accessible. I'm listening, and we may not always agree, but I'm really open, and I'm willing to take a public beating and listen to what people have to say.
And I'm gonna let you close the door because again, the election is right around the corner. People are voting. Tons of people have already voted.
Yes.
So you close the door on this interview and tell the people why you believe that they should vote for you and what you're going to bring if you're elected.
Well, I think that it's about compassion and caring, and having a community focus, and really being about the people, not about one's own political ambitions beyond this job. I love our city. Genuinely, I love the people in our city. I'm willing to accept people where they are and help anyone who needs it. And I really, truly, as a mother, I'm a mother to the community, and I think that our children are our best hope and our best future, and we need to make sure we make sound investments in their education and then also in their educational settings.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. I did get that dig in there about not getting other jobs. There's a little jab in there.
Yeah.
You're committing to saying if you're elected mayor, that's it.
When elected, I will be here. I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be on the ground. You'll find me in the grocery store. You'll find me in your community meetings. You'll find me in your community, in your living room, everywhere.
We're gonna have to leave it there, Councilwoman.
Okay.
And everybody, the website is out. Where do people find your vision for Richmond?
Kim Gray, RVA. Is it com or net? I should know this. I think it's .com. Kim Gray.
Come on now.
I think I have all of those little.
I understand. No, we're gonna end it there. Thank you for your time.
Try them all.
Thank you for your time, Councilwoman. We're going to wrap this up. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Cheats Movement podcast. This is the special edition, Who's Got Next, as we look at the top candidates for mayor of Richmond. Till next time, we see it.